I have traveled in buses and seen people look at the live tracking and say, "Oh, ये सही है क्या?" If you have to do something in transport, right? It's a complex problem and it's a long waiting game.
You're a coder working day and night and juggling a million possibilities in your head to build something that sticks. Working with your co-founders, you are trying to bridge the gap between a great idea and a workable solution. At the start, you love it because you're in your element, but then responsibilities expand. You need to manage projects better, teams better, time better, and last but not the least, life better. You also need to move out of your comfort zone and talk to many potential customers for feedback and pitch to investors, which can sometimes feel like selling water to a whale. And that's just the beginning. If you find yourself in a similar situation, wondering, am I doing things right? Well, how about we help you finish your train or bus of thoughts to guide you in moving forward. Welcome to Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS. I'm your host, Gautam Srinivasan. Our guest today has gone through the motions of being a technical founder, and in a very short span of time, he has managed to create India's leading bus transport technology company. Please welcome Vinayak Bhavnani, CTO and co-founder at Chalo. Vinayak, welcome on board Crafting
Thanks, Gautam.
Bharat.
Happy to be here.
All right, happy to be here. That's what I like to hear. All right, let's punch in our tickets for this conversation on managing potholes and consoles that are part and parcel of running a startup with our guest Vinayak. It's time to start this trip with our first segment called The Incubator. All right, Vinayak, let's begin this journey. Let's start with your origin, right? Because after gaining 2 years of experience as a developer, you along with Mohit, Priya and Dhruv, you embark on founding Chalo. Transitioning from crafting a communications platform at DirectEye to address mobility challenges, what inspired this shift? And I'm also interested to know, why buses of all the options?
Let me tell you 5 buses. If you look around, right, and if as you spend time within mobility, you will realize in India, only 3% people have access to cars. Another 2 to 3% people can afford a cab, right? India happens to be the largest two-wheeler country. But again, that penetration is not more than 14-15%, which leaves more than 80% people reliant on public transport, right? And public transport is only too full today. Metro is too small today, right? While it's on the rise, but it's very small. Rickshaws and buses are the 2 biggest modes of transport, right, in India. And buses are also 2 to 3x of rickshaws. So just from a number of people taking buses, it is by far the largest, right? And also, given their massive affordability, buses operate at 1.5 to 2 rupees a kilometer, right? And hence buses, because buses serve the biggest mode of transport. They happen to be the biggest mode of transport. That's why buses. Absolutely. For the masses.
For the masses, by the masses, for the masses. But when we look at it broadly, you're right, because preference for public transport has always been lesser versus private transport, especially because of reliability issues. Bus time pe aayegi ya nahi pata nahi, meeting jana hai, and you can't help but wonder, should I just take that auto and move on? Honeymoon phase ke baare mein zara bataiye for customers when they first experience these conveniences, right? Their response to you, what was the feedback given, and how it helped you build that critical mass of customers to help you spread your operations across many cities and providers. The last I heard, I think you guys issued 6 million tickets on the platform each day. When we look at public transport, those are big numbers. So the consumer delight part of it, any feedback that you remember saying, my mind is blown with this?
Now, I think from a customer standpoint, right, there are 2 key value propositions that we offer, right? Number 1, live tracking. Right? Even today, right, while Chalo is very popular in 50 odd cities, 80% of our users use the app for one single thing, which is, can I know when my bus will come, right? People have told us that we ended up saving 40 minutes every day. 40-minute waiting time is now gone down to 2 minutes, right? Which is a massive, massive delight. I have traveled in buses and seen people look at the live tracking and say, oh, ये सही है क्या? ये चलता है क्या?
That's where the doubt, once it gets addressed, it becomes the wow.
And the moment you see the bus actually coming right, that person is blown away. And there is so much word of mouth, right? We have not spent any money on marketing at all, right? And the second, this is back in 1819, right, when you had this big demonetization, right, after a couple of years, we introduced these tap to pay payments, right? We saw the other surge, right, of customer delight then. I think these are some of the unlocks which you are able to leverage.
Let's talk about a question which I have always had, because the National Common Mobility Card was launched in 2019. And considering such giant strides that we have taken in digital payments and broadly the digital experience, how close are we to having one card that serves all your transportation needs? There's Octopus in Hong Kong that I've used, there's EasyLink in Singapore. Seamless. Card liya, kahin bhi jao, your transportation is done. I believe you got a Mumbai Chalo NCMC card, right? So when can we see a Chalo national NCMC card?
Now, let me answer this in two parts, right? I think one thing which all of us should feel very proud about is India has proven that India can build, digital payment initiatives on a massive scale across categories, right? UPI and FASTag are two great examples. Last 5-6 years, right? I believe both NCMC and ONDC now, right, are the next two ones which will be successful, right? So that's the one part, that India has done this and India will do it again, right? Now, from a NCMC perspective specifically, we recognize this trend very early, right? And we choose to invest much in advance. We invested both on building the product capability, right, and also awareness amongst a lot of big cities. Mumbai, for example, became the first city to launch NCMC in buses. Right?
So that's setting the base, that's what
absolutely. And again, see, you have to do things in advance. You cannot start doing things once they're already successful because you are no longer needed then, right? You have to set the pace. So we invested both on the product and building awareness, and we were able to launch BEST. Today, Chalo is the leading acquiring platform, right? Which means we have the technology which allows bus operators to accept NCMC cards. Again, think of it supply and demand. You have to solve for supply first. Unless everyone accepts an NCMC card, why will a customer buy? So we said, okay, let us start laying that foundation first. We have done this in Mumbai with BEST. We have done this in Assam. We have recently done this in Jammu, in Srinagar, and Kerala.
Oh, really?
And few more are, on track.
So you're building that critical mass of test cases around
and the supply.
Places. And the supply. Right? So that once it's built, then you can kind of take it national.
Today we are already leading that, right? Okay. That is something which is a cookie cutter for us, right? We'll keep deploying this across the bus supply that we have. Very recently, in March, RBI had a big regulation change, okay, which allows, any bank or any PPI issuer to issue NCMC cards without any KYC for transit, which means now you need not do any KYC for using this card on a bus or a metro.
Ooh, so that could be the game changer.
Absolutely, right? And I believe now, like today is the time to actually jump on the issuance bandwagon.
Oh.
And we are fully geared up for this.
Fantastic. But now, considering itna sab hua hai, so many developments have happened, there are still some gaps, right? Because the transportation industry is vast and diverse. You've got the likes of the Ola, Uber, you've got the likes of the Red Bus, for interstate travel. Ola, Uber to taxi ka dekh lete hain. But when it comes to digitizing and transforming public transportation, these gaps still significantly exist. So why do you believe the challenge of urban public transportation has persisted without a satisfactory solution? Itna sab hua hai, digital payments hua hai, digital infrastructure, consumer awareness, consumer habits have changed, but still those gaps exist. Why?
Yeah. No, I think this is like a great question, right? And this needs, more reflection, far more reflection. I think, last 100 years, when you think of, investments in mobility, it has been massively done around cars. I think that itself is something we got wrong.
They say that about Mumbai actually. They say like it's a very car-focused infrastructure which is being built, not very public transportation bus-focused.
Forget Mumbai.
Achha.
Which other city is not like that? Majority of the cities globally, the investments have happened on cars fundamentally, right? Last 100 years, let's make better, faster, more expensive, different sized cars, right? I think which is misplaced focus in my view. So first point is the lack of focus, right? that okay, there is a massive population, there is a massive audience, right, which needs this set of
It
products.
needs to be brought the power of technology to solve.
Absolutely, right. So they have been missed, number one. Number two is again blind spots, right? Again, if you were to ask me, long back, that who runs buses in this country, right? My answer would have been governments, right? कि अच्छा government bus चलाती है, right? And lot of people would stay away, right? Say government
वो तो perception रहता है, government
It's a perception.
यार private चलते हैं.
Private चलते हैं. So it's a blind spot. Now, if you ask this question to someone who has lived in Mangalore, for example, or say Kochi, right? They will say, हाँ वो private operator चलाते हैं, but वो तो एक बस है चाचा जी की, दादाजी की एक बस है. So there the perception is it's very very small and fragmented private operators, right? And again, both are daunting, right? So they are blind spots, right? Okay. And the third reason is, I think, the complexity, right? If you have to do something in transport, right, it's a complex problem and it's a long waiting game. Very, very complex category. You need to build solutions only for this.
But I also like the fact, and this is how I'll wrap up the incubator segment, that you're also looking at solving the first mile and last mile connectivity issues.
Yes.
You're not just looking at, अच्छा bus है तो उसी पर focus करेंगे. And you've solved for connectivity issues with these first and last mile connectivity issues with the acquisition of Shuttle and Vogo. You also operate in more than 50 cities across India, 5 international locations. Altogether, it's a lot of scaling up. So I want to bring you to bring your engineer dimag to this answer, because a lot of scaling up has happened, and your cloud ops are powered by AWS. So take us through the cost savings and operational efficiencies which have been unlocked for Chalo with the help of AWS.
See, I think our vision is to solve for end-to-end mobility. We want to actually make sure that your travel is hassle-free, right? And while bus is the best main mile or the anchor mile, you need to solve for more accessibility to bus networks or metro networks, right? And hence, first and last mile have to be solved. Now coming to the next thing, right? So we do more than 6 million rides a day, right? Every single day on our platform, which is trending to become 12 million, say in 6 to 8 months, with all the supply that we have already signed, right? And the first and last mile, and now we are also international, right? So it did take a lot of effort from us, right, to optimize and make sure that it's also cost efficient. And one thing that I have loved about AWS, right, I personally believe in long-term partnerships, right, and AWS has been one, right. And the biggest test is when adversity strikes, right. Back in COVID, all mobility was on a big standstill, and so were buses, right. We were in a very very tight spot, and I think AWS helped us out massively. Allowed us to reduce costs, also allowed us to extend our commitments, right? So that, from a cash flow perspective, we are better off as a company. So I think, kudos to them. I mean, that's, stood the tide of that partnership. And beyond that, I think, again, we have got help around, how do you set up analytics workloads, right? How do you do it well? Similarly, we are consulting with them. How do we make sure that our international deployments, right, are both performant and cost effective, right? So I think there we have benefited a lot, right, from this part.
Absolutely. I think the best bonds are made when you're fighting in the trenches, and those who are with you in war times, those who are with you, they become your best friends for life. Well, that's the story of how you're making the safar sukhad for consumers. Aapki seva mein janhit mein jari. That's your 15-minute safarnama on learning why इस startup जीवन में आंसू की नदियां भी हैं और खुशियों की बगियां भी. How about we take a detour for a quick look at the रंगीन दुनिया of a startup founder? यूं ही चला चल रहा ही towards our next segment titled The Accelerator. All right. Your interest in coding started in college, and you took many freelance projects to fuel your thrill of creating, even building an app in the final year.
And pocket money as well.
Pocket money to hai. But I believe you built an app in the final year, which was more towards real estate and brokers, solving that problem. So, funnily enough, 2 years after you graduate, a bunch comes up with no broker. Do you think the proverbial missing the bus happened here?
No, I don't regret it at all, actually. While I missed the broker bus, I got the Chalo bus, right? So I feel very lucky with that. But I think just on a broader note, I think India is full of very very talented people, right? I think we are blessed with both business acumen and understanding of technology, right? So it's a matter of time, right? That people will identify those gaps and build a product around that and, solve the problems of this country.
I think
So
that's a
no
very important
surprise.
message, because sometimes in that hunt for perfection where we're trying to see, nahi, this is how I'm going to approach, have a perfect app.
Yeah.
Koi aur, bus nikal jayegi. Somebody else will come up with a solution, which is good, not perfect, but it works for that situation.
And it's good for the end customer actually, right? That hustle and that competition is, the end customer benefits, right?
The more the competition, the better the solutions presented in
Absolutely.
front, and more options for
More
them
options.
to choose. All right. थोड़ा ज्ञान देखते हैं. Technical founders sometimes need to take off that technical hat and put on that business hat. And since you're a technical founder, I thought this is the best question to ask to you, because a lot of the folks who are watching, they might be in a similar position. What would you say?
No, I think again I used to apply one principle, right, which I mean preach also, right, very very often. I think so. The principle I use is to maximize value that you create, right? Every time you look at a problem, you should think about how to solve this in the best way possible. What is the best solution? What is the most valuable outcome from this, right? And what we forget, we get married to what we know. So, for example, if I understand coding, I'll think, "Acha, ye problem hai. I will write code to solve this." That is fundamentally wrong. I think if we apply this principle of maximizing value, finding the best solution, and not worrying about what we know, I think we will land up in a much better shape.
Fantastic. Your view on traffic, Mumbai versus Bangalore?
That's a controversial one. So again, both Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, right? Traffic is on a rise, right? If you look at the number of cars which are plying on the road in all these cities, last decade, it's massively, ramped up. I think traffic is a nightmare everywhere.
Let's wrap this up with a quick question on guiding principles that have shaped your approach in developing Chalo.
So three macro, right, principles which I will talk about. I think one is to adopt long-term thinking, right? I think if you are building a business and if you want this business to be sustainable and meaningful, it cannot be done in a short term, right? Number two is about, again, Peter Thiel said this, right? Don't build a business which everyone else is building, right? I think that's also a fantastic...
Build a unique business.
Build a unique business, build a business around blind spots, right?
Right. Tisra?
Third is, using technology as a fundamental lever, right? Both to create value, that delight in the customer, to drive your margins, to deliver scale, all of that, right? So if you use technology as a fundamental lever, you will be better off.
All right, lots of lessons to learn. Long-term thinking, build your business around blind spots, and leverage technology to deliver customer delight. That's your 5-minute roadmap to learn that if you travel far enough, you might just meet yourself. Brought to you by Crafting Bharat, a startup guide with Vinayak Bhavnani. Let's get in some more passengers on this bus of thoughts, Vinayak, when you will answer a few questions sent by our audience. It's time for our final segment called The Advisor. Right, our first question comes from Sharan Agarwal, an angel investor and VC fund advisor, and he asks, please shed some light on how a startup should best justify their valuation to an investor in light of the recent overvaluations that have been taking place, and what would you recommend as a good revenue multiple for early stage startups to use as a benchmark for valuing themselves? What multiple would you use in the case the startup is pre-revenue?
This is a hot topic these days, right? Valuation.
Mamla garam hai.
Yes, बहुत garam.
But that's why we get the best in the business to talk about it, right? Boliye.
Yeah. No, I think see, the valuation of a startup, right, is a reflection of the future value or the future business potential that startup can fulfill, right? Now, if you look at early stage startups or pre-revenue startups, I think revenue as an indicator would be a wrong lens to look at.
So what's the right approach?
So I think when you look at a very early stage startup, the right lens would be to look at the founder market fit, product market fit, the category, the size of the category, right? Are you building a product for a large category or a small category, right? Also the timing, for example, right? Are you at the right time or not?
That's
right?
more important.
Yeah. So some of these things are far more important when you evaluate and thinking of justifying the valuation of an early stage or a pre-revenue startup, right? So don't look at the revenue lens at all. That's what I would say.
All right. Our second question comes from Kedar Dave from Shuru Up Ventures, and he asks, what advice would you give to other tech startup looking to innovate in the transportation sector? What would you advise to the Davids who are going to go up against Goliaths in this system?
Yeah, I mean, two quick piece of advice, right, which could be more specific to this sector. One is have a very, very long-term view of this, right? You have to be patient. If your dream is to change transportation in a city, that's a very, very long haul.
जिंदगी का सफर है बड़ा लंबा सफर.
Bilkul, right? You said it well. So you cannot expect some magic in 6 months or 12 months, right? You have to be patient, right? So it's a long-term game when you think of transforming transportation, number one. Number two, again, more nuanced advice here, right? Lot of companies which get built, we only think of the customer. And again, that's the right way of thinking most of the times. But when you think of transport, you have to take care of all the stakeholders. And I'll name those, right? One, for example, for us, when you think of buses, you have to worry about the bus passenger, right? You also have to worry about the bus operator. And, don't forget the regulator, right? Transport is a space, right? Even when the government doesn't run the bus, they have a big say, right? So do worry about them, do care for them. So look at all stakeholders, right, and solve for them.
सबका साथ सबका विकास. All right.
I'll stay away from that.
Right? General life application भी होता है. Our third question comes from Mitesh from Hame Angels, and he asks, can you share a success story or a memorable experience from a Chalo user that highlights the company's impact?
Bunch of them actually, right?
एक नहीं तो ये हो जाएगा.
मैं आपको दो बताता हूँ.
अच्छा, दो है, ठीक है.
So one is, again, lot of people have come to our Seawards office in Navi Mumbai, right? And these people have been physically disabled, right? Lot of people who cannot speak or hear. They have found, Chalo to be a great, partner, because imagine if you cannot hear, right, or you cannot speak, it's very difficult to ask for directions. It's just impossible, right, in a society like ours. When you have an app, right, which is your assistant for all your travel needs, I think they have found a bliss. And just imagine, right, someone walking to your office with a box of sweets.
Oh, really?
I was blown away. And this has not happened once, right? This has happened multiple times. So that is something which is close to my heart. Now I'll tell you the next one, right, which is not a customer story. Hundreds of customer stories, I gave you one. Imagine the crew. Right, we work very closely with conductors, right? The conductors have the Chalo machines, they will accept the digital products and so on, right? Now, before us, when you go and look at a conductor's life, right, they have to remember कौन से bus stop से कौन से bus stop का fare क्या है, right? They have to either issue a ticket to you, remembering all this
dynamically, right?
Dynamically, right, etc., or use their old punching devices, right? Their life is difficult, right? When these conductors grow old, 40, 45, 50, they are taken out of job. क्योंकि it's very difficult, right? वो होता ही नहीं है मतलब. कुछ सोचते रहना पूरे time.
So you've expanded their longevity as well.
Yes. So when we give them this smart device, they have to do none of this. You have to remember nothing. Everything is on that device, right? Which means your livelihood, your employment has been elongated by at least 5 to 6 years, right? This is something that people told us. And that again was
and it drives a very organic relationship, right? आपकी नौकरी सलामत है, आप तो use करेंगे क्योंकि if you use it, it's easier for you. So it's win-win for everyone in the ecosystem.
The family itself, right, has a massive boost. And again, this is like a big motivation, right? When you hear something like this.
I can imagine next time you get on a bus, the conductor actually, आप सब हटो, इनको बैठने दो यहाँ पे. Well, that's life, and those are the stories that we bring out. But that's the end of the line for this episode of Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS. This podcast is an initiative of NewsReach. Vinayak, it's been a pleasure to speak with you and understand the ups and downs of running a fast-moving startup. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Likewise.
Fantastic. And the next time you look for a hassle-free experience while traveling in a bus, think of Chalo, if they are in the area. A big thank you to our audience for tuning in. Do like, share and subscribe to our channel and get the best seats in the house for understanding India's startup journeys. Till next time, this is your host Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS, is an initiative of NewsReach in association with VC Circle produced by HT Smartcast. The director and executive producer of this show is Deepthi Ahuja. The assistant producer is Veda Mohan. The video editor on this show is Kuljit Singh. And the audio editor is Amrinder Singh.